Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, County Council considers banning most police traffic stops. After multiple incidents, is MCPS doing enough to fight antisemitism? And can MCPS stop students from using fentanyl? Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by former county council member and president of Rebuilding Together Montgomery County, Nancy Floreen, and Republican attorney Jim Shalleck. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. Since being elected to the county council as an at-large member in 2018, Councilmember Will Jawando has made his mark as a social justice activist and has often championed police reform efforts. This week, he and Councilmember Kristin Mink introduced the Safety and Traffic Equity in Policing Act, which once again seeks to reform police's use of authority and power. According to political observer Adam Pognucco, Jawando's bill would prohibit many police traffic stops and searches, even if the latter had been consented to by a driver. Police would be prohibited from stopping vehicles for traffic offenses related to licensing and registration, certificate of title or insurance, window tinting, defective headlights or tail lights, illuminated license plates, and minor obstructions on windshields. Police could not stop vehicles for using headlights and not using headlights at night, and in adverse weather conditions, even though that's mandated by state law. Police would also be prohibited from enforcing jaywalking laws. Now, according to a RAND Corporation study, traffic stops are the most prevalent way the police come in contact with the public. And the study points out that the results from unlawful driving supports the need for traffic enforcement, but it recognizes that police traffic stops, while needed, are also confronted by the fact of racial disparities in who the police stop, which make it a flashpoint for those who want to end the practice altogether. And it is seen by many that if police traffic stops were curtailed, it would serve the greater cause of social justice. So Nancy, Jawando's bill stated in support of his bill that it would end the practice of driving while black syndrome. Yet the RAND survey found that 43% of traffic stops were for speeding, 24% for equipment violations, including the use of a cell phone, 9% for suspicion of criminal behavior, and only 4% of traffic stops were so-called pretext stops. So is there a need for this type of legislation?
Well, I personally don't know Will at all. But I would say that this is a national issue, less a local issue. Obviously, the numbers here don't particularly support it. But in the politically correct department, Will is there, that's for sure. And, you know, in other parts of the country, and if you look at the cases where there have been some of these terrible traffic stop related deaths, they arise out of really modest stops. And so that's a question of training and judgment on the part of the officers. This fall, I understand, the police department announced a whole new training regimen for police officers, which I think is important, the most important part of policing. And so we'll see how that works with this. Obviously, the bill only applies to modest things. I don't know how often they really do stop. Apparently 4% the stops are based on these kinds of issues. So it's more of a statement, I think, than a reality check. I've done ride-alongs. I don't know if you people have. I've done a little bit of the police training, and it's important to understand the world from the perspective of the police officers. It's also important, interesting, Will is not on the Public Safety Committee, but new member Kristin Mink is. And I'd be curious as to how they're going to handle this, this in committee, because really council members, decision makers need to understand what life is like on the streets from from the viewpoint of the police officer.
Well, I want to, I didn't put in a quote from the Rand Corporation report about the incidents that you described, Nancy, which have led to violence. And oftentimes it comes down to poor training, as you say, but it also pointed, the Rand study also pointed out that there is a greater degree of resistance from the general public towards police authority and obeying police when stopped. And so that may be another topic that we can explore sometime later, maybe not in this segment, but sometime later, as to how the public needs to respond to the police as well. And I do want to get into this, Jim. Not only according to the police, the Rand survey said that 87% of police responded they do not support proposals that would reduce the role of police in enforcing traffic stops. I assume you agree with that.
Well, I think this bill is terrible, absolutely terrible. What the council is doing is handcuffing the police. Traffic stops are very, very important. Even if they find someone with they don't have their license or their license is suspended, the police can inquire through their internet. Why is the license suspended? Did they miss an admissions test, or are they wanted for murder in Wyoming? They often pick up people wanted in other states, other jurisdictions. Once they make the stop, they can see if there's activity in the car that's suspicious. So even if it's a benign stop, they can find other crimes and other people who may be wanted. So it's an important tool for the police. And no traffic stop is benign or innocent. Any single traffic stop can cause an officer to be killed. So why are we handcuffing the police? I mean, the county council are elected, yes. And why, if they're going to change their policy, wouldn't they do it by executive order quietly? Why tell the public you're not going to stop them anymore if their license is suspended?
Well, that's a good question. And I guess it goes back to the question I was going to ask Nancy, which is, two very powerful unions have come out in opposition to this bill. You would expect the Fraternal Order of Police to oppose it, but the powerful MCPS union has also come out against the bill. So is this going to live to see the light of day, I guess is the question, Nancy, out of the council?
We'll see. MCPS and the FOP, they're going to argue about anything that affects operations. So that's natural standard behavior. What's interesting is, you see police cars driving around. They're running numbers all the time. They are always running license plate numbers. They're always doing what Jim has alluded to, which is checking people, keeping an eye on these sorts of issues anyways. So, I mean, that function is built into how the police operate today. So again, I think it's more of a tempest in a teapot situation than a real life issue. And it's a political statement. And that's what this council is all about.
Well, I'll be interesting. I'll tell you, this is an anecdotal, survey, of course, but the few people that I've discussed this topic with, all are opposed to it. They say that's crazy. We need the police to be able to make traffic stops. And it'll be interesting to see what the public comments are made on the 14th, I believe, is when the hearings are scheduled for, whether the public comes out in opposition to this as strongly as I think they will. When we come back from this short break, we ask an awful lot of the Montgomery County public school system. We ask them, and now we're asking them to do things that maybe they aren't even equipped for, which is stopping students from using fentanyl and combating the increase in anti-Semitic incidents on school properties. Stay tuned when we come back from this short break. And welcome back. In 2022, Montgomery County Police reported 48 anti-Jewish incidents, an increase of 55% from 2021. This year, 9 separate anti-Semitic incidents have been reported at 4 of our county public schools. What's causing this demonstration of hate in a county that prides itself on diversity and where Jews make up more than 10% of the county population? Nancy, the county council recognized this growing problem as recently as last year. Last November, it passed unanimously passed a non-binding resolution condemning anti-Jewish hatred. But it's most recent incidents that are so concerning because they've taken place at the schools. What's the solution?
It's really interesting. I don't recall. This is a really major. Well, it's come up periodically. This kind of behavior within the community, and I don't know what's coming from now. The other thing to remember is that there's a lot of scrutiny about whatever anyone says in any context. And so anyone saying, using inappropriate language in a private conversation, in a group situation, much less a public situation, is going to get called out for it. And I think that's appropriate. But that's one of the things that's changed. I think the transparency of everything that happens, particularly in the school system, where people do hold the schools accountable for monitoring and managing student behavior. It's a big problem and a big challenge for the school system. It's increasingly.
Jim, many Jewish parents are frustrated, and one example was an op-ed that Joel Rubin, the vice mayor of the town of Chevy Chase, wrote, who demands greater accountability from the school system. They're saying they're not punishing kids. They haven't done any due diligence and found out who are the perpetrators of a lot of these incidents. So is the school system doing enough? No,
they're not. And condemning this conduct is not enough. To me, this is another reason why we should have a police officer at every school. These SRO officers should be in the schools. And when they find someone who has done this, anti-Semitic or anti-any commentary, they should be punished. They should, if it's proven that they did it, they should be thrown out of school permanently, made a permanent mark on their record, so they're not going to get into a good college, if any. And if the conduct is beyond just an insult, if there's conduct that destroys property, things like that, it's a police matter. But these kids have to be punished so that the rest of their lives, they'll regret what they did. Condemning means nothing.
But isn't that awfully harsh, Jim? I mean, it's not. There have been some commentary that's saying that this is just regular teenage behavior, and we shouldn't put a black mark on them for life.
No, it's not innocent, especially if you're Jewish or your family had to go through the Holocaust. Any religion that's treated like this, to them, it's the most important thing in their life. And punishment is the key here. Sounds harsh, but that's life, Casey.
Nancy, one of the things that I've learned is that the school systems have not been involving the parents when they've found certain students have been involved in these activities, that they haven't even notified the parents. And that now, as part of their new strategy, they're going to bring the parents in. Isn't this a little bit too late to be doing that?
Well, I'm surprised that it's new. And yeah, I would agree. I mean, parents should be involved in all of this from the get-go. A lot of the issue is, I suppose, does the school system have the resources to verify these kinds of assertions, that sort of a thing? And how do you handle an internal investigation of that nature? And I think the school system is called on more and more to arbitrate these situations and make the right call with the right information.
You know, it's always been my experience, having dealt with some school issues of my own on a trustee of two different schools. The students know what's going on. They know who have done this type of behavior, and it doesn't become a secret very, very long. So I'm a little surprised that the schools haven't taken a harsher turn towards this. And it's something that the county council is well aware of based on their resolution from last year. But I want to go on to the next topic, which is even more difficult topic, because again, we're asking the school system to do something that they may not be equipped for. And a lot is demanded of the Montgomery County public school system. And we've discussed how, the school system is trying to fight anti-Semitism in our last segment. And now we got to talk about what Montgomery County is doing to crack down on fentanyl use and student use. Today, in today's Washington Post, there's a very tragic story about a young man whose brother died of taking a fake Percocet pill, which was laced with fentanyl. And, he's a senior at Whitman High School, and his brother died from this. There were 48 overdoses in 2022 compared to 27 in 2021. So it's shocking that, the rampant drug use in our public schools is so pervasive. Jim, the new plan that's been announced is to monitor how long and when students can be in the bathroom. With your long background in law enforcement, is that sufficient?
No, it's not, Casey. This is not a school issue to me. This is a criminal case. Fentanyl distribution or use is criminal, and kids die. We need a police officer at the schools. The SRO program should be reinstated. It's a police matter. Somebody who is taught or found dispensing this stuff should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. It's like an attempted murder. You give someone a pill with fentanyl, I mean, they could die. So this has to be treated as a police matter. The schools.
But is it a situation that the schools can do something about, or is it a larger issue that has to be addressed by law enforcement and even on a national level, not a local community level? Nancy, the other major initiatives that we're talking about is to encourage all households to have, the life-saving drug Narcan on hand to stop overdoses. Isn't this just an admission of defeat that we don't know what to do? It's so pervasive.
Well, we don't know what to do. I mean, it is an admission. Certainly, it's a problem, and it's a deep-seated problem, apparently. I don't know how well-informed the school community is about this. I would think that parents should be on guard and are warned about this. Kids have always been drinking. They've been taking drugs and whatever since the beginning of time. We all know that. Teenagers misbehave. There's no question about that. And I don't disagree that it's a criminal matter for the police and the courts in terms of distribution. The issue is dealing with the product of that. And what does the school system do as, what is the term in parental, what is the term, Jim?
In loco parentis.
Yeah, loco parentis. They're supposed to be acting as the parent, but the parent in Montgomery County has very different views about how their child should be handled. That's one of the challenges of that the schools face in dealing with this.
Well, there's really,
there's no question that this is a serious
there are
problem.
really two very different issues. Well, one is, if like in the instance of the young boy from Whitman, where his brother took an illegal drug, but which was laced with fentanyl, that's a question of teaching them about drug use, and they shouldn't be taking Percocet, let alone Percocet laced with fentanyl. But the fentanyl issue is really a problem. And
Yeah.
I don't know if education enough is going to solve that problem to prevent, as you said, Nancy, kids have been taking illegal drugs for, since the 70s. They've been smoking marijuana in the bathroom. So
Yeah, they've been doing something.
Casey, you use the word the problem. It's not a problem. Yes, it is a problem, but it's a crime. It's a crime to use and distribute fentanyl. And these offenders in the schools have to be thrown out of school. They can't be in the classroom with other kids anymore, out of school, and they should be prosecuted. I mean, someone who distributes or gives another kid fentanyl should be in jail, not a classroom. And why don't we wake up to the fact that there are bad kids, good kids are they could lose their life. It's a crime. Let's call this a crime problem. And it has to be dealt with like that.
well, I don't know if that's, I don't know if by requiring that the bathroom doors be kept open is treating it like a crime, Jim. It seems like they just are trying to keep kids from, engaged in illicit behavior.
Well, I go back to the fact there should be a police officer in there to monitor all this. They know the kids that give them information. We need the police in the schools, no matter if it's politically correct or not. We got to save our kids' lives. This is a big deal. This is not, kids do graffiti. People can die, and we have to treat it like that.
Nancy.
It's not like the police officers are going to be hanging out in the girls' restroom. Remember, I don't think that police presence. Well, I don't know if the presence would make a difference. Historically, there are corners in a school, in a public building, where bad things happen. That's always been the case. So I'm not sure that there's one simple solution to all of this, but I do agree that certainly finding out who's distributing this stuff and where it's coming from should be a major priority of the police and should be a focus in Montgomery County.
Well, there certainly seems to be a huge problem in the schools and from the use of illegal drugs, and it's a real concern, obviously, because it's not just a harmless somebody smoking a joint, if you want to call that harmless. It's somebody's life who's been in danger. When we come back from this short break, stay tuned for parting shots. And welcome back. Now with parting shots, Nancy Floreen.
Well, I would remind our audience that we have public processes for weighing in on issues, and not enough people take advantage of them. As the issue we've been talking about today, issues with police behavior and the role of the government in regulating it and those sorts of things. The Montgomery County Council needs to hear your views. By and large, it hears from a limited audience with narrow perspectives. It rarely hears from the average person or other members of the community who haven't been invited to participate. So I would urge our viewers to keep track of the legislation that's pending in local government and weigh in. They don't hear from you. It's your fault if you have a point of view that you feel is not being taken into account.
Thank you, Nancy. Jim Shalleck, your parting shot.
Thanks, Casey. We touched on my parting shot in our topics today. I was very disappointed in our brand new county council. And right out of the door, they're handcuffing the police with the bill we talked about today. The police do a great job in Montgomery County. It's an excellent department. And they know how to police. People that are elected to the county council, even the county executive, they don't have law enforcement experience. And unless you're a cop, you don't know the mindset that they go through every day. The minute a man or woman officer gets out of their car, technically their life is at risk. We have a better chance of going home at night than they do. And I think we have to show more respect for the police. Don't handcuff the police. Let the county council deal with all the issues that we have to deal with in Montgomery County. But when it comes to law enforcement, let the cops do what they have to do to keep us safe.
Thank you, Jim. That's as we talked about earlier, it's an important point. And thank you both for being here. Nancy, welcome back from your travels overseas. I know you had a great time because I saw your terrific pictures on Facebook. But I want to thank you for both being here today. I want to thank the audience for tuning in each and every week to Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show. For 21 this week, I'm Casey Aiken.